Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to What She Said. I'm wearing a t-shirt that has some names on it. I bought this last year. Juju, Paige, Angel, and Camilla. So last year, I bought this t-shirt, I think from a company out of Chicago. I also bought a Chicago Sky shirt. It's Angel Reese for me, etc. Right? So what we're talking about today, we just gonna hit it straight. What they say, straight, no chaser. I don't drink, so that's just what I think it is. We're talking about racism in sports, and in particular, we're talking about the two sports that I know that I love. This channel was founded on, and it's basketball and football. And notice I didn't specify college, pros, etc., because the racism we've seen in the modern era in the last few years has been across the board, whether it's college or the pros. And it seems like the players that are hated on in college get hated on in the pros. And I started this channel. One of my first posts was about the subjects of today's conversation, Shedeur Sanders and Angel Reese, right? So we're going to give everybody a chance to come in. We got a good conversation today. You know, this channel is very transparent. We don't shy away from the truth. And it's actually sickening how pervasive the racism is right now and how it's continuously hurled at two of our best and brightest. And there's reasons for that. And we have debunked the naysayers that basically want to attribute Shedeur's hatred being towards his last name in the Sanders. That's actually false. That's false, because I pointed out that Lamar Jackson gets hated on, and Deion Sanders is not his father. Jalen Hurts gets hated on, and again, Deion Sanders is not his father. So we're going to talk about that and all of the intentional misinformation already being hurled at Angel Reese. You know, Rival just finished his regular season there in the postseason. First name on this t-shirt is Juju. Why? Because people are saying that she's also been experiencing the fact that they're trying to subdue press about her, or not, allow the press to make it to where it is. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to be honest. There's some conversations happening on threads that I'm a part of. I don't mind responding to people. If you respond to me, make sure you're intellectual, or I believe you on read or unread or whatever it is. So some good conversations have been had around this topic. Yesterday, we talked about, Coach Prime's contract is not done. It seems that this is not a coincidence either. And we talked about how the coaches that are valued, their contracts were immediately after the season. As the season ended, hey, no, we want you to come back. Ryan Day and Sarkisian are two, just to name the two. Now, there's others out there that y'all don't know about. Whereas Coach Prime, his contract seems to be lingering. And we know what he's brought to Boulder. We know what he's brought to Boulder in terms of success, economic, financial, all of that. You would think that the community would be standing on its head, wondering why his contract has not been signed. And we talked about yesterday, I said it looks a little cutthroat, that, Coach Livingston's contract was done first. And it was true. Coach Prime wants his coaches to be taken care of, but he needs to be taken care of as well. But I pointed out, the magnitude of, Coach Livingston's contract almost sends a message. So we're going to talk about that as well. All right, so I'm gonna put some music on. We're gonna say hello to some people in the chat. That's what we do here. We recognize our supporters, family, and friends of What She Said. We do have memberships. Feel free to join us. I've run into some people in the comments today that I invited to join us tonight. One comment basically was asked, telling me about what we talked about yesterday. And that happens. We'll discuss something here. You'll hear it somewhere else, and then people are like notifying us. And we're like, we already talked about that. That's What She Said. That's why I named this podcast What She Said. All right. So, hey, Shanithia, welcome. Hey, Crowley, welcome. Thank y'all for hanging out. There's already 11 of you hanging back there. Hit the like button. If you can't stay long, hit the like button. And I'm just going to put a little music on and we're going to get going into the first video. There's two that maybe you've already seen, but I put these together. So we just going to see what it is. All right. How's everybody doing? Let me know in the comments how you doing. All right. So because this is my basket. I've been trying to figure out if I wanted to separate basketball podcast, football podcast, what she said, basketball segment, because not everybody likes the two. I might be a few people that don't. So we'll just see. All right, so I'm going to play this video, and I want you to tell me if you remember this.
Beat a big bad wolf, but then kind of cry like Courage the Cowardly Dog.
So Angel Reese makes too much money to cry. She's too grown to cry. And when she loses, she can't cry. Y'all make it make sense. Join me for conversation on what she said. Hit the like button and subscribe.
All right. So this is probably the second post or the first post I made when I decided to make this channel by the same name called What She Said, right? And it's about Angel Reese and the fact that, again, one of the talking heads from a big box platform was trying to disparage her, basically saying that she can't cry. Because at one point, I felt like all of the hatred was getting to her. And she's human, so she has emotional. And I believe Emmanuel Acho at the time caught a lot of flack from myself and others who felt like, what do you mean she's not allowed to cry? Y'all are allowed to disparage her, but she's not allowed to cry. Like, really? And what's sad is he would have never done that to a Caitlin Clark or anybody else that has Caitlin Clark's complexion or affiliation with being considered to be Caucasian or white. He would have never have done that. And that's what we're talking about with the racism, how it's twofold. It's coming from people in the industry that look like the same people they're hating on. So they're aiding and abetting racism, in my opinion. And they would not dare disparage anybody that is white, that looks like that's in the same position as Bronny James. At all. The optics on it wouldn't be good and they wouldn't do it. But they seem to be okay with using Black people as a symbolic punching bag and landing place for their racism, even though they say, oh, it's just for clicks. Racism is not for clicks. If you're not on the end of racism, it's not for clicks. And if you feel like you need your publication to be relevant because it's not, by using Angel Reese's name and taking her words out of context to basically try to start a war between her and the WNBA when she's getting ready to return to the WNBA. I mean, that's malicious. That's the term. It's malicious. So another video that I have, I used last year. Hey, Gracie. I used last year when I started this podcast. It's about the same two people that I have listed for tonight. And that is Shedeur and Angel Reese.
It's filled with so much racism. There's so much vitriol spewed at people like Angel Reese, Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders, the Colorado Buffaloes, LSU women's basketball team. And what is so sad is the athletes are just pure competitors. Caitlin Clark is phenomenal. Angel Reese is phenomenal. And people want to make it more about skin color than the true competition in sport.
So last year, it was essentially that if you cheered for Angel Reese, you somehow didn't like Caitlin Clark. And that wasn't true. As you heard me say, Caitlin Clark is phenomenal. Angel Reese is phenomenal. Shedeur Sanders is phenomenal. And I'm not sure why it is that this is still continuing, other than the fact that it's being allowed. So yesterday on What She Said podcast, we as a podcast family got together and we talked about how Black quarterbacks are experiencing racism. And I told y'all what my theory was. I basically pointed out that the young Black quarterbacks, especially the dual threat quarterbacks, are being singled out, excessively sacked. How quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson have been hated on relentlessly for absolutely no reason. And because these people are resilient and obviously don't allow these things to get to them, this just continues. And people think that them not talking about it means that it's okay. And it's not. And what is happening is it's really the media weaponizing their platforms. When you look at, the NFL and you look at the draft, people think it's okay that, they're talking about Shedeur Sanders. They're not talking about Cam Ward, so this must be about Shedeur being a Sanders. Them ignoring Cam Ward does not mean that that's a compliment. The fact that they don't talk about him at all should tell you that the reason why they're tearing down Shedeur is because he's the most high profile. So if I succeed in tearing down him and not talking about Cam Ward at all, then I win, because they are the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft, and they are the number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks who are Black. So I have succeeded. I'm not tearing down Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. I'm tearing down 2 talented, phenomenally talented Black quarterbacks. And somewhere in the process, they didn't even know Cam and Shedeur were friends until they linked up at UNLV on camera. And afterwards, they were like, I guess we can't divide them because they're friends. So that's clearly not going to work. So I'm just going to act like I don't see Cam Ward, and I'm just going to drag Shedeur down. Like they don't hate on Jalen Milroe. Same thing. And we talk about how evolution of a Black quarterback, this is actually discussed, right? That's what the whole show, that's what it's about. It's on Amazon. It's produced by Michael Vick, talking about everything the Black quarterback had to endure because the league and the powers that be associated with the league and coaches and etc. did not want Black quarterbacks to take the position of the Black quarterback. So you have to ask yourself, well, if that's what it was like in the 70s and 80s and 90s and early 2000s, when did it stop? It didn't. It did not. It has not stopped. The hatred you're seeing towards Shedeur is a part of that. So if they ever do a part 2 to evolution of a Black quarterback, you can go from Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, throw CJ Stroud in there, throw Caleb Williams, throw Bryce Young, throw Justin Fields in there. Suddenly, Justin Fields have to prove himself. He's only been in the league 2 years. He was taken out the game early, 4-2, which wasn't bad. He has the 3rd highest QBR rating of veterans quarterbacks available for free agency, and he went 2nd or 1st. And people were shocked because they were expecting him to sit behind Aaron Rodgers. And what people don't know is the reason why you see them disparaging and trashing Russell Wilson is because of a collusion lawsuit that the veteran QBs, some veteran QBs, one being Russell Wilson, filed and won against the NFL. But the NFL, right around the time of the Super Bowl, it quietly came out, was found guilty of collusion. And Russell Wilson didn't have any problem attaching his name to that lawsuit because he felt like he was right to do so. It takes courage to stand up. When you stand up, you will get your neck cut off, but you have to be a strong enough person to survive and stand up again when you get knocked down. That's why you saw all of that hatred towards Russell Wilson in Denver. It was no coincidence to me that he or Justin Fields ended up in Pittsburgh. Why? Because their coach is Black. And I said at the end of this season, I felt like Mike Tomlin was under pressure to get rid of, to do away with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Because what did I say yesterday? And I've said it multiple times. This is a numbers game where Black quarterbacks are concerned because there is a faction or a clan of folks associated with the NFL, whether they be quarterback coaches, whether they be scouts, whether they be the media, that they want to make sure that what they started decades ago, the heinous treatment and racism towards Black quarterback continues because they don't want Black quarterbacks to become the majority. And that's exactly where we are. That's exactly where we are. So what did I say yesterday? You're starting to see Black quarterbacks be stacked up on teams with each other rather than going to another team and starting. Not that they can't. So Justin Fields going to the Jets shocked a lot of people because it's believable that he would start. And they're like, ooh, And if he starts and balls out, what happens? The same thing that happened with Lamar Jackson when he won unanimous MVP after they tried relentlessly to change him to a wide receiver in the draft. And when he said no, they tried to humiliate him by not drafting him until the number 32nd spot, the last spot in the first round. I told y'all how when these quarterbacks get disparaged over and over and over in this draft process, it's to hurt their draft stock, not just because, but it's to hurt the money that they make. And if you don't believe that a hype train exists for certain players like Aaron Rodgers and Daniel Jones, you're not paying attention. There is that same faction, that same clan, which I do believe is a part of that circle that tried to convince Lamar Jackson to become a wide receiver. They actually said he is a poor man's Taysom Hill. Excuse me? And if y'all don't know who Taysom Hill is, okay, then what does that tell you? Because you know who Lamar Jackson is, even if you're not a football fan. That young man got drafted last and went on to do what? Win the unanimous MVP. And this year, after he won his second one, he was up for a third, had the best record. They snubbed him. Josh Allen, cool dude, should feel kind of uncomfortable accepting an award when he knew he wasn't better than Lamar Jackson. So if the award most valuable player is not for the best player, then what is it? I heard Emmanuel Ocho try to unsuccessfully argue that MVP is not for the best person in the NFL. That is exactly what he said the Heisman is for. Okay. And what is the Johnny Unitas Award for? The best quarterback in college football. And who is that? Who won that this year? Shedeur Sanders. You see, people try to twist scenarios to fit their lunacy. And what's happening is when you go under these comments with these absurd headlines like Shedeur Sanders is not a quarterback that the NFL wants, these folks are letting these talking heads have it. Just like you saw LeBron post up on Stephen A., fans are posting up on these analysts. It's just in the comments. They're not out in the street with a sign. So fans are revolting because we want to see competitive sports. We don't want to be barraged with nonsense that props up, that attempts to prop up 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, who no team seems to want, and the media is trying to collude to try to force a team into taking him by saying that he's the second best available QB after Sam Darnold, when actually he was the fourth or the fifth. 4 and 5 were truly for QBR rating. 1 was Sam Darnold, 2 was Russell Wilson, 3 was Justin Fields. I think 4 or 5 was Aaron Rodgers or the person in Atlanta, Kirk Cousins, who just got a contract with a $50 million signing bonus and $100 million. And because he can't start, he wants to leave and go to a team where he can play. What happened when Deshaun Watson wanted to leave the Texans? Okay. But none of that has happened. None of that is happening. And it's like people want to apply pressure to Atlanta because they don't want to see a white quarterback sit behind a black one. Kirk Cousins should have never been paid that way. The laughing joke in the city of Atlanta was the winner of the trade from Minnesota for Kirk Cousins to Atlanta was not Minnesota, was not Atlanta. It was Kirk Cousins' agent. That's who reaped the benefits of that contract. We have the most overpaid backup quarterback, and he wants to leave. Today, I saw a headline from somebody at y'all know where that said, Shedeur Sanders, the negativity, where did it come from? How did it get like this? Who started it? Louis Riddick, I think, is the person who the article was supposed to be. Maybe he wrote it or somebody put his name in it. I don't know. I was like, where do you work? ESPN, your place of employment is responsible. If I'm not mistaken, the article that came out, Shedeur, no, the NBA is now, the NFL Shedeur is not the kind of quarterback that the NFL wants, came from somebody at ESPN. Remember Cam Ward spouting the ridiculousness of Shedeur Sanders never being coached by someone else when he's had 6 or 7 offensive coordinators? That finally died down. Stephen A. in New Orleans bringing up the fact with Coach Prime right there that people are saying, and it appears that Stephen A. was like trying to give Coach Prime the platform so he could thwart these ridiculous rumors that Shedeur Sanders doesn't have the strongest arm, but he's the most accurate quarterback. I don't know what else you're looking for. If I can lob the ball 70, 80 yards and be accurate, then what else is there? So Stephen A. appeared to be allowing Coach Prime to answer these questions and address it, but then the next day Stephen A. goes back without Coach Prime and brings it up again. And some of these people want to say, this is our job, this is what we're supposed to do. Then why do you only do it to Black people if it's just your job? Instead of asking and saying that Justin Fields has to prove himself with the Jets, when is Trevor Lawrence going to have to prove himself? Why doesn't he have to prove himself? Why not Daniel Jones needed to stay in Minnesota and prove himself? But no, he got shipped off when Minnesota needed a second quarterback behind J.J. McCarthy, who's supposedly starting. They sent him to Indiana to compete with a Black quarterback for his job, Anthony Richardson. Tell me that didn't make sense. So now Minnesota got to go get another quarterback. So now get this straight. A few days ago, Minnesota had 3 quarterbacks. Sam Darnold, which for whatever reason, they didn't pay him to stay, even though they did really well. He did really well there. So at free agency, he got offered $100 million to go to the Seahawks, where the musical chairs shifted Geno Smith to the Raiders, who Geno Smith seems to believe he's going to start. And I'm like, for a 3rd round pick? And I haven't heard money terms yet? So that left Minnesota with 2 quarterbacks, which makes sense. No. They said Daniel Jones is on a 1-year prove me contract, and they sent him to Indianapolis. Then if he needed to prove himself and he was already in Minnesota, why you didn't leave him in Minnesota? Because you don't want Indianapolis to end up with what? 2 Black quarterbacks. So what did they do? Pickett, who just won a Super Bowl with Philadelphia, who, by the way, is being picked apart after people tried to outlaw the tush push, something y'all see done in Philly and that they actually used in Colorado. It works. It's a good play. And now that the NFL is doing away with the chains to measure they're using the ball, you think they would keep the tush push because the ball is supposed to be accurate now because it has the chip and they've been testing it, so they're good, right? So Pickett gets sent from Philadelphia to Cleveland. So now Philadelphia needs another quarterback. And as they're picking apart the Super Bowl winning team like vultures, let's see who ends up in Philadelphia behind Jalen Hurts. I'm going to go with Jalen Milroe. And let's see who ends up with J.J. McCarthy. Let's see if J.J. McCarthy has to compete with Cam Ward or Geno Smith or Jameis Winston, who, by the way, still does not have a job in the NFL. So just keep your eyes on what's going on with the quarterbacks. It's not a new situation. It's actually sickening. And to watch the media try to create a hype train for Aaron Rodgers and try to pressure teams. And the team they tried to pressure was who? Pittsburgh. Right before free agency started on noon on yesterday, I think, a day before, all you can hear was, I don't know why Pittsburgh, they need to hurry up and call Aaron Rodgers. Why can't Mike Tomlin make his decision? You need to make Mike Tomlin a decision for him. I don't hear you making any decision for anybody else. So that's that pressure that I'm talking about. And they were expecting Aaron Rodgers to go there, Russell Wilson to be dismissed, and Justin Fields to go to second. And the pressure is on coaches because the hype train Like I said, the hype train has two going down two tracks. They over here trying to hype up Aaron Rodgers and pressuring Mike Tomlin to take Aaron Rodgers. And then at the same time, there's actually a headline that says the coach that drafts Shedeur Sanders could be out of a job. What the hell is going on here? This is a mob mentality. I'm like, says who? And then people want to say, well, this is just talking heads. This has no impact on the actual decision. That's false. Because around Daniel Jones, there was a hype train. And New York rode it for a long time. Even sacrificing and letting go Saquon Barkley. That's how strong that hype train is. Good evening. Let's see who we have here. Kiel Crowley says Stephen A. can't be trusted. And it's so sad because Stephen A., I don't know if he ever said anything about nepotism and LeBron. But what I do know is he brought his nephew into the fold. His nephew, Josh, has been coming on to the show. And it's been cute, like a meteorologist or whatever. So what happens now that he brought his nephew in? And let's say some fraction of the audience doesn't like his nephew. Is he going to be okay with people disparaging his nephew the way, he was talking about Bronny? Knowing that Stephen A. has never discussed a number 55 pick in the NBA in detail ever, probably. So if people don't like his nepotism move, and people decide, okay, you brought your nephew onto the show, we don't like him. He only got that job because of you, Stephen A. So how can you tear down LeBron when you brought your nephew in, which is just straight nepotism, and you actually talked about it being nepotism, and you okay with it being nepotism? So it's like Stephen A. gets a pass as long as he continues to trash talented Black athletes. And that's what's sad. I like Stephen A. But unfortunately, Stephen A. does seem to subscribe to the fact that I'm just doing my job. And he's picking on certain athletes, but they're not white. He's doing exactly what these so-called coaches, scouts, quarterback coaches, talking heads in the media are trying to do to Shedeur, is what he's doing to Bronny. After knowing full well, Stephen A. knew exactly how LeBron was treated. We talked about that yesterday. What's happening to Shedeur happened to LeBron, happened to Jalen Hurts, happened to Lamar Jackson. Being excessively sacked, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud in his sophomore year. And it was reported, we talked about this yesterday, that this particular lineman who supposedly had an issue when one of the reasons that CJ Stroud was sacked 52 times was just sent over to the Commanders. So are we being set up for Jaden Daniels to now have a sophomore slump? That's why people say this is scripted. This is not a script. You're playing with people's lives. You're playing with their livelihoods, their health, and their wallets. If Jalen Hurts was drafted where he should have been the first round, he would have made $20-some-odd million instead of $9 million over 4 years. So when he got his $253 million contract, was almost right around the number where he got drafted 53 or 55. Add that to 26 rather than 9. And now that Josh Allen, who has not won a Super Bowl, was just paid $330 million by his team, it should not be a problem when a quarterback named Jalen Hurts, who's been to the Super Bowl twice and just won, that should be easy. Let's see when we get to that point if it is. So what that also does is Lamar Jackson hadn't won a Super Bowl either. So we shouldn't hear anymore he can't win the big games because Josh Allen couldn't either, and he was just rewarded with $330 million. So when it's time for Lamar Jackson, it should be good, right? Some people say Pat Mahomes should be getting something like that. I already thought he had a lucrative deal, right? So I don't know his situation. but I'm sure he'll be up for contract renewal at some point. But, what's happening to Shedeur is not new. What you have to do is go watch Evolution of a Black Quarterback. And where it ends is where the modern era quarterback picks up. It could be Geno Smith. It could be Lamar Jackson. It could be Jalen Hurts. And instead of, once these guys make it to the league, it doesn't end there. Their money is affected because why? Lamar Jackson dropped to 32. He only made $9 million his first 4 years. And remember, he was unanimous MVP. Same thing with Jalen Hurts. They got to work for it. Even though they already earned it, they get knocked down due to this hate train coming through to tear them down, just like they're doing Shedeur. That's exactly what they're trying to do to Shedeur. He's confident. They don't want him to be confident. They don't want him to go first. They don't want him to start. That's why they keep wanting him to go to the Giants. And you've never heard anybody on any of these platforms point out what we have multiple times. The New York Giants have never had a black starting quarterback. So this is supposed to be the year, from the same ball club that fumbled Saquon Barkley. But I want to disparage Shedeur instead of talking about how inept some of these ball clubs are. Chicago, the Panthers. Fans talk about it all the time. But when it comes to the players, the quarterbacks get disparaged. I've heard too many times this QB draft class is not good. That's false. What it is, it's led by two black talented quarterbacks. And then CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams were drafted. They were at the top of their class, and both have been excessively sacked 52 and 65 times respectively. And somebody had the audacity to ask, I wonder who's going to be sacked more, Caleb Williams or Shedeur Sanders. They already setting him up for it. So if CJ Stroud offensive line can give way and be the worst offensive line in the league and allow him to be sacked 52 times his sophomore year, trying to ensure he doesn't beat Kansas City and get to play against whoever Kansas City played, I guess the Bills. Then over here on the other side, we got Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels. But the person that was problematic with the Texans on CJ Stroud O-line just got sent to the Commanders. That's interesting. So I guess when we see the O-line not working out, we know what the problem is. See, people say it's scripted. You mean rigged. See, scripted doesn't have to be negative. It just means I can predict the outcome. Rigged is so that somebody loses and somebody wins. And the rigging that I see happening is the hype train trying to prop up Aaron Rodgers that no team seems to want, and trying to force some type of sentiment for Mike Tomlinson, who's black, for them to choose for him who he gets as a quarterback. All the while, when Justin Fields escapes and goes to the Jets, now it's on Aaron Glenn to prove something. It's on Justin Fields to prove something. When is it going to be on Trevor Lawrence to prove something? Where is Zach Wilson? And why couldn't Daniel Jones on his 1 year prove me contract compete with JJ McCarthy? But no, he gets sent to Indianapolis to compete with Anthony Richardson. It's disgusting. It's not scripted. It's rigged in favor of white QBs over black QBs. It affects their money coming into the draft, all of the negativity, the hate train. And the hype train works for the Josh Allens, the Aaron Rodgers, the Daniel Jones, until it doesn't. And then they still want to go forward with it like we don't know any better. And as fans who read any or subscribe to anything that they have to say, to me, they're calling you stupid. Because they're telling you what you're looking at ain't what you're seeing. Oh, Daniel Jones not a black quarterback. Like you don't have common sense to ask if he on a 1 year prove me contract and you chose him over Saquon Barkley. Clearly that's what you did. But now he on a 1 year contract in Minnesota. Who needs a quarterback? You send him to Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson. Why he couldn't compete for the starting job with JJ McCarthy? Better yet, why couldn't Minnesota pay Sam Darnold? did a good job, right? So they know that QB1 is JJ McCarthy. They know this. But we don't know what Geno Smith is. They not 100% certain what Justin Fields is going to do. That's what we think. And QB1 in Indianapolis now has to compete for his job. And I don't know what's going to happen to Jalen Hurts now that they took Pickett and sent him to the Browns. Why the Browns just couldn't re-sign Jameis Winston? So let's see who ends up in Philly. Let's see where Shedeur, Cam, and Jalen Hurts all end up. Let's see where Jackson Dart ends up. Before the combine, all you kept hearing, Jackson Dart's gonna make it to the first round. Then send him to the Giants and let's keep it pushing and stop talking about this fake scenario of Shedeur going to a team that has never had a black quarterback. Because you don't like him and you want the Giants to draft Shedeur and bench him. That's what you're hoping for. That's what you're hoping for. Because why do you care where Shedeur lands as badly as y'all talk about him? Because you want him to get benched. You don't want him to start. Pat Mahomes had a 10-year deal. It was, he had 10 years for how much? 280, 250. Oh yeah, he definitely gonna be looking. But by the time his contract expires, I don't know how many years is he into that contract. I think Josh Allen got 6 years for 330 and he never won a Super Bowl. How many Super Bowls have Pat Mahomes won? Wow. And $250 million of the 330 was guaranteed, the biggest guarantee in the NFL in history. It said these teams seem to go out of their way for white quarterbacks. Right. And like I said, there's a lot of conversation being had in the comments for what she said on the various videos, but then also too on threads. And one person, I think on the podcast or maybe one of the videos where we were talking about this previously, was basically saying it seems that the NFL would rather overpay a mediocre white quarterback than start a black one. I said, you mean the Atlanta Falcons? Because that's exactly what happened. And look at the situation. God made the crooked places straight. That's what happened. That's what happened. That's what happened. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. It has already happened, and that's what typically happens. The reason why the media is supposed to help choose the MVP is because the media can be swayed. You see how the media get down already. They're already biased. You have an old platform like Yahoo trying to spread misinformation about Angel Reese and what she said regarding the pay in the WNBA. Now, Yahoo is about as old as AOL. I don't hear AOL saying anything. So to me, they're trying to remain relevant. But if you read any of their articles, they are skewed. They are definitely skewed. I paid attention to that last year. When it pops up, I read it, I look, I said, okay. So it's like these publications have an identity. White supremacy is behind them. And it's not just what you read on the internet, it's what's being said aloud. What's being said aloud when you hear somebody from ESPN, like Mel Kiper Jr., make defamatory comments saying Shedeur Sanders is not the quarterback that the NFL wants. How does he have the audacity to speak for the entire NFL when it seems like teams keep meeting with Shedeur Sanders? That shouldn't even be allowed. And the fact that Stephen A. supposedly runs ESPN tells me he might be the figurehead at ESPN, but somebody out there is pulling some strings that allows this foolishness. The way that they disparage black QBs, black draft QB prospects would never be allowed against a Josh Allen, Daniel Jones, etc. And yes, they would rather mediocrity in certain aspects. Daniel Jones was proof of that. Trying to prop up Aaron Rodgers while simultaneously disparaging Shedeur Sanders is proof of that. They should be happy to have Shedeur. If Shedeur Sanders were white and confident, oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, you want your quarterback to be confident. But because he's black and confident, and I already don't want black quarterbacks, and they keep coming and they keep being successful, then I'm gonna have to tear you down in some respects to see if I can determine where you end up by using my influence and my voice, which is loud, because I'm gonna band together with some other racist talking heads to try to change Shedeur's outcome like they changed Lamar Jackson's outcome, calling him a poor man's Taysom Hill. That is insane. Lamar Jackson is immensely talented. They tear down Lamar Jackson because he uses his legs. They tear down Justin Fields because he uses his legs. He's a dual threat quarterback. Something they can't control, and one of the reasons for the elevated numbers of black quarterbacks rising to these positions because of their athleticism. Don't be mad because black people are athletic. There's a white guy at a university that just ran a 4.4 as a safety, and he was snubbed by the combine. So don't be mad because black people are athletic. We're not the only people that are athletic, obviously, but we're the ones that get dragged, and it's worse when it comes from someone like Stephen A. trying to trash Bronny, who was the 55th pick. Y'all know LeBron could have pushed for his son to go first, to whatever the Lakers needed first. He didn't do that. So he wasn't trying to use or exploit his influence. He knew his son had also come off of a cardiac event. And people are just upset that LeBron has influence and power enough to have his son be involved, which is nepotism, which is not new to any of these leagues. You go to these front offices and you will see. You go to these offices, you're going to see who worked there. Teams get passed down from family member to family member, or wife to husband, or son to daughter, and that's cool. GMs get hired because this is my golf buddy, and even though he don't know what the hell he doing, I'm going to let him make these decisions for my team because I can. Because I can. But when somebody like Coach Prime goes to Colorado, when he was at Jackson State, they didn't care. They saw all of the, oh, this is good. That's nice because it's not over here. But the moment he came to the Power 5, instantly started trying to tear him down. You can't do it. Same thing with Shedeur. And when Shedeur said, what? After that TCU game, they said an HBCU kid couldn't do it. They got in their feelings. And I threw for over 500 yards, the most yards I ever threw for in my life, which is why they tried to sack him here and there all over the place. So he don't get those yards. So he's not Mr. 500. That became his nickname. I know because I've called him that myself a few times. Zach Wilson is the backup quarterback in Miami behind Tua. Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, fans are calling it out. Fans are calling it out because they don't like it. Fans do not like the fact. I'm sorry, I didn't know I was on here. I wasn't on here. Fans do not like the fact that this is happening to Shedeur. But to me, the most hypocritical ask was for somebody like Louis Riddick, who I called out a few weeks ago when he wrote his article about Cam, because I felt like he was using Cam to slight Shedeur. I called that out on this podcast. It's on video. Go check it out. So he's back and he's asking, how did this negativity come to be for Shedeur? I'm like, he said, where did it come from? Who started it? I'm like, your place of employment, sir, your co-workers, you. And it's funny how Louis Riddick is black. Stephen A. Smith is black. Now, Shannon Sharp is at ESPN now. We've seen, Cam Newton try to be hateful, but it kind of died down a little bit. So, I don't know what's going on with him, but I don't know about Shannon Sharp. Shannon Sharp, when Colorado played and lost to Nebraska, I unfollowed him because I didn't like how he went in on Colorado as if, nothing's changed, blah, blah, blah. And he was just trashing the university, in the program. And Coach Prime was his friend and one of his first guests on his show. I'm like, that's loyalty. That's not how you treat people. And I think it's because obviously he played football, but he comes from the media too. And I don't know if he was under the mindset that it was okay for me to drag Coach Prime's program, even though it was obvious that somebody in that game was compromised. And I did 2 videos about it. It's out there. Go watch it. which is why we have, in my opinion, a new O-line coach. So I just don't know what side his bread is buttered on, you know. Seemingly he wouldn't do something like that. He protects LeBron, but Stephen A is bold with it. And I think Stephen A feel like he's doing his job. And I don't think it was anything wrong with LeBron posting up on him, letting him know, that's my son you talking about. And Stephen A was in the media when LeBron was trashed. He knew about it. So you gonna do the same thing to his son? So yeah, I didn't know Zach Wilson was the backup quarterback in Miami. It says Jameis Winston can't find a job while Zach Wilson and Kenny Pickett can. Right? There is no reason. Let me tell you something. There is absolutely no reason that Jameis Winston can't be the backup behind QB1 in Cleveland. There is no reason other than it's a numbers game. If I get rid of Jameis Winston, I just shift Kenny Pickens around and Zach Wilson is still over there, this, that, and the other. You see what I'm saying? This is a numbers game. See, this is the problem. When they can't disparage them in the draft enough because there's too many of them and they still rise to the top. Well, now I got to start moving people around because you got in when you wasn't supposed to get in. The media didn't keep them from getting in. And then in the case of what happened in Atlanta, where Michael Penix Jr. should have started, but they paid all this money to Kirk Cousins, which was ridiculous. And now look at the situation we in. Kirk Cousins want to leave. Why? He don't want to sit behind Michael Penix Jr.? He said he want to go somewhere he could play. Do he really believe he could start and be good? Why he believe that? Because the media keep telling him. And he just want to believe it. Even though he just got paid $50 million to sign and $100 million guaranteed. So if they can't disparage him, and or they do disparage them like they did Lamar Jackson, or they do disparage them like they did Jalen Hurts, and they affect their money, and they seem to take pleasure in dropping their draft status because they know it affects their money. But even when these guys like Michael Penix Jr. get drafted, patient, wait, even though it's wrong, I'ma wait and let God do what he does, make the crooked places straight, and then I get my start, and then I get the start next year. So all of this musical chairs, while it probably is maybe is typical, when you look at who's moving and where they're moving to and who is making room for, it's a numbers game. There is the Minnesota having 3 quarterbacks and now ending up with 1 when Daniel Jones is on a prove me 1-year contract. Why move him to Indianapolis to compete with Anthony Richardson? If you know Daniel Jones isn't good and he need to prove himself, then leave him there with JJ McCarthy then. Because if he don't win, then he's goodbye. But they want to keep making exceptions and this, that, and the other. But Justin Fields, who's been in the league, 2 seasons? Has to prove himself. No, he doesn't. Trevor Lawrence needs to prove himself. Zach Wilson needs to prove himself. And they okay with putting a white quarterback at backup to collect the check. Understand that too. Because it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. So we as fans have to sit here and watch our favorites be disparaged and defamed because some people don't want black quarterbacks to become the majority in the league this year, next year, etc. So they all sitting around plotting, trying to figure out where to move who to prevent 4 quarterbacks from being in the championship games and 2 more quarterbacks being, for the 3rd time coming up, in the Super Bowl. Because what that will prove is everything you said about black quarterbacks is a lie. And it just made you racist because you lied for no reason on one group of people. That's racism. And you try to hold them back. Racism is an act. Prejudice is a feeling. Racism is an act. The act of holding a particular group of people back. That's what it is. And, it seems like they're okay because I have 2 million followers or I have an audience that came from my TV show over to a digital platform to spew this nonsense. And you think Stephen A being at the top would do something about it. I mean, you would think they put you in this position because they trust you, but basically it's now seeming like they put you in this position because they know they could use you There's a term called the useful idiot. I'm not saying that's what he is, but that's probably how they look at him. Well, sure, he can get the black audience to come watch us, and he disparages them at the same time at our behest, so he's useful. Idiot. I like Stephen A., but he's not right. And at some point, he's going to have to question his conscience. He can't keep hiding behind, I'm doing my job, because Bronny is not going to be the last person to post up on him. And if he thinks that forming to work out to Louis Riddick, and Louis Riddick thinking it's cool for him to ask these questions, which are ridiculous because he knows the truth, they going to post up on him too. Fans are not happy. Black people watch sports. We go to the Super Bowl. We clearly watch the Super Bowl. And you want to keep disparaging black quarterbacks. We're not okay with that. We're not okay with that. We're not okay with you disparaging Angel Reese, despite the fact that there are some men out here who have an issue with her. There are some men who don't. Who knows that she's independent, she's single, she's living her best life. She's not perfect, but she figured it out along the way. But guess what? She's not out here harming anybody. She's just figuring out her way through life, something many of us have done at her age. And to join in on the hatred of Angel Reese and tear her down, knowing full well she's being torn down by the clan of fans that call themselves Caitlin Clark fans, who, by the way, got upset with her when she came out this year and said black women deserve the credit for the WNBA. It was founded on the backs of black women. I was like, I was looking for that last year, but I'm going to take it now. I'm going to take it now. I think one of the reasons she stays out of the spotlight is because it was so much for her. She knew exactly what they were doing. See, it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable being a part of a group of 143 women that are immensely talented, and they are of a different race, and they bring you along because they want to put you out like a show pony and get people sponsorships using your skin color to get sponsorships, and then they try to elevate you above these people that have earned it. That's not a comfortable position to be in. I would go hide or want to go to Europe too, because I don't want you using me. Josh Allen should feel the same way. At some point, one of these white quarterbacks is just going to have to stand up and say, you know what, this MVP belongs to Lamar Jackson. One of these white players going to have to stand up here and say, you know, I didn't catch that ball because, you know, honestly, somebody wanted me not to catch it. They're going to have to do it. They're going to have to do it. Because eventually it's going to be too many black quarterbacks unless the league just don't want to exist anymore. And hello, UFL. The UFL is in prime position to attract and retain and attract the talents that are being snubbed over here. Put some money behind it. Put some money behind it. I'm already trying to watch it. I got two eyes. I'm trying to look this way and this way too. And the more it pops up in my feed, the more I'm paying attention. And now I'm ready to learn the names of the teams outside of the Roughnecks. And since I see Destroying is playing this year, and he's very popular. We talked about who Destroying is. That was the young man that was in college and had the YouTube channel where he was making money prior to NIL. Notice he never seems to have made it to the NFL. He's like a punter or something. He's good. He still never made it to the NFL. It's almost like coming out of college. If they ban you, you somehow get dragged or banned by the NFL. And the reason why I say this is, why would they have dragged Jalen Hurts? You know why they dragged Jalen Hurts? Because he had the audacity. After he was benched and came back and won after Tua got hurt, he had the audacity to win and say, I'm out. I'm going to Oklahoma where they got what I want. And he did. But they showed him when he got to the NFL. They dropped him down. He should have been a number one. He should have been in the first round too. They made sure to affect him and his money, to try to tell him, you ain't as good as you think you are, even though you left Alabama, Nick Saban's Alabama. Racism in football, especially college, in the pros, it seems like with Jalen Milroe, they don't like you and they're going to scapegoat you. No, he wasn't perfect, but I told y'all he wasn't the problem. and they made some moves over there, but they didn't want to talk about them out loud. As much as they talk about Alabama, they didn't talk about they demoted their OC for lack of development of the QB, underdeveloping the QB, and poor play calling. Never heard that talked out loud incessantly the way they talk about Alabama, because it would have benefited Jalen Milroe. And they wouldn't have him out here in the 3rd and 4th round. And even though I don't think any of these kids need agents because these contracts are unalterable, he need one that has connections that, you know, he can rely on to get him back up there. Otherwise, they have him in the 3rd and 4th round. I told y'all they had Tyreek Hill, undrafted free agent. Who? And when he performed and did good, I think at the combine, they only moved him up to the 5th round. Why is that? Because he didn't go to Alabama. He went to like West or East Alabama. You see how that works? That's why some of these black kids don't go to HBCUs. They go to the Alabamas because they want to get drafted. So now they mad because the kids want to get paid. Racism and football and basketball is why you keep hearing our best and brightest, Angel Reese and Shedeur Sanders, from college to the pros, constantly disparaged. And it takes a strong person to withstand that. And when Angel Reese shed tears and cried, somebody that actually is supposed to be black, Emmanuel Acho, dragged her. No white person probably would dare. But so he decided, you know what, I'm a volunteer, I'm gonna do it. He got dragged. His credibility is not all that great. He's more of like a Molly. Meaning you just in the middle. We don't really listen to what you got to say. And for those people that think being quiet while you see people get dragged because you don't want to jeopardize your draft stock, okay. Because one thing about Shedeur, he's resilient. He's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. And if he goes number 21, it's to go to Pittsburgh. Not because he's not a good quarterback, as they're out here saying, oh, Shedeur's draft stock is suddenly tumbling. It's tumbling. Yeah, okay. Because they kept saying it was dropping. And, you know, people like me were like, what? He going from 1 to 2, 3 to 4? It's tumbling. Oh, no, he's going to the Giants. I'm like, y'all, how do y'all sleep at night? This is maliciousness. To try to tank this young man's draft stock, which ultimately affects with their pockets. Because why? In the case of Shedeur Sanders, oh, he already wealthy. He don't need to go first. Let's give it to somebody like Travis that's broke, that need the money. Travis ain't broke right now. At one point, yeah, but he ain't broke right now. He just quiet, and that's cool. He'll learn. So, you know, the racism, we talked about how Stephen A. would never call it out. We even said Shannon Sharp not gonna touch it. Well, somebody did. Ryan Clark today said it with the R word, with his chest out. He believes Shedeur Sanders is being treated the way he is because of racism. I'm like, we had already said it, but we needed somebody up there to say it because we're small and we're grown. I'll keep thinking I'll end up on one of these platforms. Not I. Not I, unless they have the guts to talk about racism. So I'll be right here. I'll be right here. I can't fake the funk. Never could. So, and nobody that went to grad school with me would be shocked. If they saw me, they'd be like, that's her. That's her. So yeah, you know, as much as it would be fun, ethically wise, it would never work. It would never work. So Ryan Clark came out today and used the R word and put his chest behind it and said that Shedeur Sanders is being disparaged due to racism. I'm like, yeah, because Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and if I sit down and figure out who's all in between, I can figure it out. See, that's 3 people right there who have been openly disparaged and defamed, in my opinion. Because why? They all 3 have the same thing in common. Lamar Jackson stood up for himself and confidently said, no, I want to work out as a quarterback, not a wide receiver. Jalen Hurts had the audacity, because he has self-worth. Thankfully, his parents raised him that way, that he said, I appreciate you here at Alabama, at Nick Saban, Alabama. I'm going over here to Oklahoma. He had the audacity to leave. They thought benching him was going to keep him in place. No, he came back. He won and bounced. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to stay there and lick their boots that they feel like they made you, when he knew for the fact him and God made himself. He know he's God made. Didn't no man make him. So they're mad with Jalen Hurts about that. And that's why they're mad with Shedeur, because he's confident. To be honest, they want these quarterbacks, for the most part, to go Pat Mahomes route. Marry somebody outside your race, denounce your blackness. True story. Sometimes the call of racism comes from within the house. It's publicly documented on social media. Y'all know how couples get together and they play a game like, how well do you know your husband? How well do you know your wife? Like that. We've seen celebrities do it. Well, Pat Mahomes, and I do believe his wife, I don't really know her, played the game, right? Now, y'all know Pat Mahomes is actually black. He's mixed, okay? Just like a lot of black people, mixed. Pat Mahomes' father's black. I don't know if his mother's white or she's Hispanic. I'm not sure. I've seen his brother. His brother gives me that he might be Hispanic. I don't really know how he's related to his brother. It could be his half brother, his full brother. But I know they don't like his brother either. And I think because of maybe his brother's lifestyle. They don't like him. But clearly, Pat Mahomes is not distancing himself from his brother. So his brother still is in the suite at the Kansas City Chiefs game. But he likes to make a lot of TikToks that upset people because he likes to sing and dance. So Pat Mahomes and his wife were playing this game. And when Pat Mahomes' question to his wife to see how well she knew him, what are my favorite foods? It's not what she said. It's how obtusely she said it. She said, fried chicken. He was like, no. It's Mexican food. So you mean to tell me your wife don't know your favorite food? And for some strange reason, she gravitates towards fried chicken when you really like tacos? Sometimes the call comes from within the house. So fellas, distancing yourself from your blackness is not going to help you. In fact, you don't even have the biggest contract. You got $250 million over 10 years, whereas Josh Allen got $330 over 6. So you got to work much longer to get less. That's not a win. And when you're being embarrassed by the person who took your last name, on the racial side of all things, you got to ask yourself, is it worth it denouncing my blackness? But that's ultimately what they want you to do. They want you to be in that situation where you marry a woman who's not black, and on television, she publicly embarrasses you and basically says your favorite food, even though she's your wife, is fried chicken. Because you black. If he didn't know he was black, she pretty much told him. So sometimes the call from racism comes from within the house. So if you think denouncing your blackness or marrying somebody that's not black because you're in the NFL, you want to be comfortable because there are people who, try to suppress black people or oppress black quarterbacks and other players. If you think marrying somebody who's not black to try to circumvent that, kind of like marrying a white woman so you don't get a traffic ticket, it ain't gonna work for you, partner, because she ain't gonna be with you all the time and you gonna get that ticket. Ask Robert Smith. If you don't know who it is, look it up. All right. So denouncing your blackness to try to survive in the NFL as a black quarterback is not the answer. Staying quiet while you're being ignored, while you sit down and watch a black quarterback be defamed is not the answer, because eventually they coming for you. Or because you stayed quiet during this process, when we come for you, we expect you to be quiet. Because you basically saying, I'm not going to say nothing because I don't want the heat to come my way. Okay. So, ultimately Shedeur is doing the right thing, out here living his life. He posted a picture of some palm trees. We love to see Shedeur out here enjoying himself. Remember after the Alamo Bowl, after we felt like they were punishing Shedeur, remember how he posted beautiful vacation photos, which I know are on my Instagram. Because, lovely. Same thing. Shedeur is somewhere on vacation. He is not concerned People thought when Geno Smith went to the Raiders that Shedeur instantly was not getting drafted, which is why they started the nonsense of his draft stock is tumbling because Vegas is not going to get him because they got Geno Smith. Don't be surprised if Shedeur ends up a Raider. Somebody actually had in the comments one of the best draft scenarios for Shedeur that I never even considered. It involves Shedeur being drafted by the Giants and traded to the Cowboys. Does that make sense? Or traded to the Cowboys or traded to the Raiders? What do y'all think about that? Shedeur Sanders be drafted number 3 and instantly traded to Dallas or the Raiders. Let me know your thoughts on that. So I got to let y'all see my shirt again. So y'all can pretty much know that, I talk about, basketball. I'm passionate about basketball. In fact, tonight, unbeknownst to me, the SWAC basketball tournament is in Atlanta and has been for like a day or so. So today I tried to get tickets because I thought I was going to go live from the game. Jackson State is playing against FAMU. Does anybody remember me? Does anybody remember me almost going to Alabama until it froze and snowed that I was going to go watch FAMU play? Because I posted on my Instagram that FAMU coach was upset because they only gave him a 1-year contract and they expected him to lose. So they are playing Jackson State tonight. My goal was to go support. The game started at 8:30. I could not find tickets at all. I went to the arenas page. It said online ticket sales have been paused. I thought it was sold out until I saw an article about noon today saying there are plenty tickets left. I couldn't find tickets at Ticketmaster, any of these other outlets out here. So this is another way that hurts our attendances sometimes because you can't figure out how to buy tickets. I go to like StubHub. It says they have tickets. It opens to the NCAA tournament, March Madness, which also is here in Atlanta. So, I tried. I really tried really hard. I really was going to just go up there and go live from there and just stand out there. But you have to pay the part. Then I don't know if I could get a ticket. And it takes a while to get over there and get back. And it's traffic. So I was like, you know what? I tried. That's all I could do. So I really tried to support the SWAC tournament. I think they have like a few more days till like Saturday. So if y'all see me going live from there, I found the ticket. And it wasn't expensive. It seemed like the tickets started at $10. People were reselling them for $17 or $15. But I could not find tickets for tonight's game. They did have tickets for like the women's game tomorrow at 11 a.m. I can't just be at a game at 11 a.m. I could get some PTO, I guess. But, I'm just saying, you think it would be at night, but, it's throughout the day. So just know I really tried because, I had been following FAMU's basketball, because the coach felt like they did him dirty. He said they really didn't have any expectations if you only give me a 1-year contract. I'm like, well, that's facts. That's facts. So, Jameis Winston can't find a job while Zach Wilson and Kenny Pickett. Yep. That's it. And what I like about it is fans are talking about it. Now I'm gonna tell you the podcast that's not gonna talk about it. If they have sponsors, they're not gonna talk about it. If they want to be friends with Stephen A. or Louis Riddick or Mel Kiper Jr., or they not gonna talk about it. I don't know any of these people. It never even occurred to me that I could possibly ever did. And honestly, I wouldn't care either way because I feel like they ought to be ashamed of themselves. Because while they are standing under the guise of I'm just doing my job, I think that they know that there are people being racist. And the only person that had the courage to call it out is Ryan Clark. Somebody came in threads when I said, it's about time somebody at one of these big box networks have the courage to speak up. And somebody came behind them and replied to me. That's what I said. We have a good conversation going on threads. Check it out. And said, no, can't be racism. There's too many black wealthy millionaires in football to be racism. I said, being black and wealthy does not exempt you from racism, from experiencing racism. Where did you get that from? So because you wealthy, somehow you You gonna escape racism? Really? Okay. So Ryan Clark even talked about how his son had experienced racism, which is why I do believe that Ryan Clark is not shy of speaking up, because he knows firsthand or secondhand through his son, which is firsthand because he's a father, how painful it could be. And Ryan Clark's son is over at Notre Dame, where the coach. I didn't like what he said. Whatever his name is, I forgot. He looks like Usher. That's all I know. The head coach at Notre Dame. He distanced himself from his blackness when they asked him, how does it feel being the first black head coach to do something? And he was like, well, we don't want to make it about race. I'm like, all of these black kids on this team are looking up to you, and you basically distance yourself from your blackness, and basically set that example for them to do the same. That when you make it, you should distance yourself from your blackness. And racists champion him. That's right. Is that who you want to make proud? White supremacists? Racist? So I don't really like him. I have a shirt that says Irish, but I'm not wearing it. And I bought it, and I'm still not wearing it, because I can't support black people who distance themselves from their blackness because they think it's going to help them get somewhere that's worth getting, and it won't affect them emotionally, mentally, and make them look like a sellout. I'm not supporting that. So no, I will never be on anybody's network, because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna say something like this and it's gonna be bleep, 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 bleep. All right, so let me read some of these comments. Y'all have been gracious hanging out tonight. We are already an hour and 14 minutes in. Let's get to some of these comments. Let's see. Jalen Hurts, black QB who just won. Yes, exposing the truth. Dama said, I agree. Dama, thank you. I saw you in the comments too. Thank you, Dama. Let's see. What kind of ish is that? Peter, what are you talking about? It says, this is called systemic racism. Yes. Thank you, Gracie. Yes. It says he can't leave. What does it say? He can't leave. Okay, it's right here. It says he can't leave those 31. I'm not gonna pick up that salary from the Falcons, so he'll sit on that bench and get paid. Okay, all right. You talking about Kirk Cousins? Okay, all right. Stephen A. can't be trusted. That's what Crowley said. Stephen A. can't be trusted. It said Kwame Brown said that years ago about Stephen A. Smith. He's to go along to get along. And he always pulls down the black athlete for his bosses. Yeah, that's how he got the $100 million contract. But you would think he would have some power. So he got paid. He has influence, but he clearly doesn't have power. You might have the power to hire people and fire people. I don't even know if Cam Newton is still there. He might be, he might not. He might have the power to bring on Shannon Sharp. He might have the power to bring on Cam Newton, but he doesn't have the power to say, no, I would not disparage exclusively the black athlete. He don't have the power to do it. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, when you distance yourself from your blackness, or you benefit from, being black because they want to attract the black audience, but you consistently denigrate or disparage the black athlete and their children, it's selling out. You making the person who actually has the power happy. And he doesn't have the power. He has the influence, and that's what's dangerous. That's what's so dangerous, because even with his influence, and he don't have the power, if he had power, Mel Kiper Jr. wouldn't have made that ridiculous statement that Shedeur Sanders is not the quarterback that the NFL wants. Now, I don't know who it is that made the comment that the coach, and I've seen it twice, the coach that hired Shedeur Sanders could lose his job. That could have been a smaller podcast with their own agenda, trying to just use Shedeur Sanders' name as clickbait. But you could have said something else, anything else with his name in the title, but you chose to be malicious with your words, defamatory. So if Stephen A. had true power, not just the money, not just the influence and the skin color of the people they want to attract, he would have in their meetings not allowed Mel Kiper Jr. to say something like that. He wouldn't let this dude Mad Dog go spouting off about the same sort of things. And in fact, somebody said on Threads again today, Mad Dog is one of these guys that seems to be from the old school, the old guard, if you know what I'm saying. I said, yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. He racist. He's racist. That's what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I don't know why you can't say it, but that's what you're saying. You know, so it's like they're just taking turns hating on Shedeur. So this week the heat isn't on Mel Kiper Jr. and now it's on Mad Dog. And Stephen A is not going to do it because he's friends with Coach Prime, so he wants to still look favorable on Coach Prime. But I'm pretty sure Coach Prime can see that after they were in New Orleans and Stephen A let him clear up these misconceptions about Shedeur, that Stephen A went and repeated them next week. And that's why I think LeBron James is absolutely 100% correct to post up on Stephen A. Stephen A needs to know, we're not cool with you doing this. We see that you only doing this to Black people, which means you're not in power over there. You just in the position to sit in a chair and call the shots as long as you continue to disparage the Black athlete. So for Louis Riddick to ask, how did it get started? And I'm like, your employer, your place of employment, you know how it got started. And it's almost like he want to pick up the baton from Stephen A because Stephen A gonna have to move on at some point. And Louis Riddick, the way he writes his stories, I didn't care for the fact on how he was basically trying to elevate Cam and tear down Shedeur. They the same quarterback. I thought we laid that issue to rest. They both are equally good quarterbacks and could start at either team. So to me, he sees Stephen A is getting paid. He wants to enrich himself, and he's willing to take on Stephen A's, I guess, disparagement of Black athletes in the face of white people because it makes, I guess maybe that's what makes them stay watching his program. We know why we watch it because we like to see our faves. But we're not happy with this, and he needs to care what we think too. If you don't care what Black people think about you exclusively tearing down Black people, like Target, you're going to learn. You're going to learn. So he got a choice to make at some point. And he started his own podcast. So I was thinking, you know what? He might be trying to move on where he could actually speak more freely and not be bounded to disparaging Black athletes. But then that's when he started talking about Bronny, I think. So maybe not. Maybe not. See, when you like somebody, you try to make it fit. That's what I be doing with Stephen A. I like him. He's smart. I do think he's intelligent, but I do not believe he has real power. He has influence, and it's dangerous because he's weaponizing it against us, against people that look like himself. But there is a great thing. The young man proves himself worthy, so he got compensated for his good works. 2 Super Bowls, and he was one that finally was great. Are you talking about Jalen Hurts? Yeah, you're right. But they got Jalen Hurts in that second round, and like the coach told me, they always look for another quarterback if they draft one in a second round. Are you talking about Kenny Pickens going to Cleveland? Okay. It says, is the racist train? It said, these are the same children of the people who had our relatives and changed. These are their DNA clones. Yeah, that's true. But when you have somebody, when they're doing it themselves is one thing. But when they lean on people behind, like Stephen A, to stamp it, that's bad. That's really bad because you have to fight against somebody that looks like you, basically saying, yes, that's what they are. That's what it is. That O-line was suspect as hell. Oh yeah, that O-line was suspect. So now I'm telling y'all, as we gonna be watching what's going on with Washington, because I do find it very interesting that the person that they deemed to be the problem on the O-line in the Texans just got sent Jaden Daniels' way. They didn't say it was their best person or they would have kept it. So I know I didn't read it wrong. He was proud. The sellout, maybe? And he's going where? To the Commanders, where Jaden is going to have his sophomore year? I told y'all, just like Shedeur being dragged during the draft process, Jalen Hurts being downgraded during the draft process because he left Oklahoma. Lamar Jackson, I told you the three of them have something in common: self-worth and confidence. Now let's talk about the other three that have something in common. Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. What do they have in common? Black dual threat quarterbacks. Two are Heisman's, I think. I don't know about, was CJ Stroud a Heisman winner? I think he was a Heisman candidate twice. Maybe he won once. If so, 3 Heisman winners who have all been excessively sacked in their first and or second year. You think that's a coincidence? So, okay, I don't want you to start, but they drafted you. I'm going to let you start. But I'm also going to allow the 3 of you who have something in common to be sacked excessively. What it says is these young rookie black quarterbacks are not that good. Remember, black men couldn't be quarterbacks. So now that we can, I got to find another way to disparage you. So, okay, I didn't want you in the first place. Now that you're starting, come on in here and start. Caleb Williams was sacked the most in history. Before him, it wasn't history, but it was close. It was Bryce Young. So when I knew the fix was in on CJ Stroud, how does he go from getting all the way to compete against Kansas City, but then all of a sudden, and how many times did y'all hear people say the refs were cheated against the Texans this year and last year? Against who? The Kansas City Chiefs. So they didn't want CJ Stroud to replace Pat Mahomes in this quest for, I guess, is it the AFC? The AFCs? Against who? The Bills. Why gotta be Pat Mahomes? Why not CJ Stroud? They both black? Because it's not about that. It is until it gets to the point where it's 2 of them, and I'm gonna take the one that distances himself from his blackness and allows his non-black wife to accuse him of having fried chicken as his favorite food and humiliating him on TV when he liked Mexican food. I don't know how she don't know that. And the way she was so obtuse when she said it, fried chicken. And the look on his face, I'm like, that's when the call for racism is coming from within the house. I told y'all there was something about the Kansas City Chiefs organization that had some type of agenda. And I was thinking to myself, because Trevor Lawrence seems to be protected and doesn't need to prove himself. I said the only time Pat Mahomes gonna get put down if Trevor Lawrence want to come to Kansas City. Then that's when they gonna show Pat Mahomes who he is. Don't believe me? I don't know why not, because that's when it's gonna happen, because they're gonna be choosing. And you like fried chicken, so we gonna choose Trevor. That's when he gonna learn. It always comes a time when you black, you learn. If you try to stray away from being black, you gonna learn. You gonna learn. That's why we don't worry about it, because you gonna learn. Best views go to, 22 says, Mel Kiper, at first, he said Shedeur was the best QB in the draft and #1 pick, but now because of the interview at the Combine, he changed his mind because of the hate. He probably got told to say Shedeur Sanders was #1 because the hatred he was spewing, it is not because of Shedeur's interview, because Shedeur's interview wasn't bad. Shedeur didn't say anything negative, and I know he's seen a black man with his hat on backwards before. But if Shedeur didn't have on that hat and they saw those braids, even though Jimmy Horn Jr. could wear those braids and they wouldn't care, it's because he looks black. He identifies with being black. He dates black women. So does Jalen Hurts. I don't know who Lamar Jackson dates, but if he does, he might keep that out the spotlight. I don't know. But he's not distancing himself from his blackness. If Lamar Jackson stays where he is in Baltimore long enough, he will be dating white women. He will be suddenly distancing himself because he gonna think that's what he have to do to win, because he been held back all this time. Lamar Jackson has been at the Baltimore Ravens since he was selected number 32 overall in the first round by a black GM who that was his last task before leaving. If Ozzie Newsome wasn't there and somebody else was, he would have failed to the second, the third, the fourth, and probably been an undrafted free agent, just like they tried to make Tyreek Hill. Maybe they would have got him in the 5th round like they did Tyreek Hill. Can you tell me why Tyreek Hill was an undrafted free agent? Anybody? Was it his personality or something? Because if so, his personality must have cleaned up after the combine because he got bumped up to the 5th round. So tell me why. By damn time Ryan addressed it head on instead of saying it's because of Coach Prime. Exactly. That's my point. That's what we were talking about on Threads. Somebody said Shedeur Sanders is being hated on because he's Coach Prime's son. I said Jalen Hurts is not Coach Prime's son. And Lamar Jackson isn't Coach Prime's son. CJ Stroud not Coach Prime's son. Neither is Caleb Williams, and neither is Bryce Young. All of those guys have something in common. It just might have happened in the draft process for 3, but the other 3 got dragged. Now they coming for seemingly so. Who? Can y'all guess? He in Indianapolis. Yes. They coming for him. Daniel Jones on a prove me contract. Why you don't leave him right there in Minnesota to prove himself against JJ? Because you know JJ gonna start, but now you want to make Anthony Richardson fight for his starting job. Why? What's the difference between JJ McCarthy and Anthony? Okay. All right. How does somebody you don't even believe in, you just gonna move him somewhere else? He was already there. If you don't have no high hopes for him, what did that coach at FAMU say? You gave me a 1-year contract. You don't have no expectations for me. So then leave him where he is. Then leave him where he is or send him home. So you just felt the need to give him a contract? What, you felt sorry for him? He ain't make enough money doing nothing? But you think they would feel sorry for Justin Fields? No, Justin Fields already got to prove himself. And now Aaron Glenn got to prove himself. I'm like, he just got there. How many bad coaches were at teams that have lost forever? How long the Chicago Bears been bad? Been awful. The New York Giants, the Carolina Panthers. Hell, I guess the Tennessee Titans. The Browns. Family down 58-72. Jackson State with 6:32. Oh, FAMU down 58-72 with Jackson State with 6 minutes and 32 seconds left in the game. Oh, thank you for that. Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate that. Yep, I appreciate that because really and truly, I was hoping to get some information. What are you watching it on, Johnny? I don't have like cable. I just stream. So I think that's why maybe I can't see it. So I might try to pop up at the game. One of these games I'm going to get some tickets to. I really didn't want it to be tonight's game, but I'm happy that Johnny put up a score. I appreciate it. It said, no, that's Dallas trade is not cap friendly. The Cowboys are way over the cap unless Dak restructures his contract. Oh, okay. So you're saying Shedeur going to be picked by the Giants and traded to Dallas. Okay. So, okay, let's take Dallas out the equation. What about, and I don't even like saying this out loud. Let's just say Shedeur being picked by the Browns. Let's go there. Let's say Shedeur picked by the Browns, but traded to the Raiders. How does that work? Can you see something like that? Let me know, Kiel. Thank you for that. That was really good. So whoever said that on Threads, I'm gonna have to go back and say the same thing. I'm gonna copy and paste. Kiel said no, it don't work like that. You can't do it. No cap space. It said you could try going to the AU Center to see if you can get tickets from the schools. Oh, okay. I didn't think about that. That's because I'm not from here. But yes, I will do that. Thank you, Gracie. It said all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Absolutely, Atlanta. Absolutely. That's how I feel about Pat Mahomes. And he might be perfectly fine with that. He might be okay with that. It said Cam and Shedeur are friends per Coach Prime, and Shedeur invited Cam to Colorado, and Cam invited Shedeur to Miami to visit with him. It is on film. They were trying to pit them against each other. Yes, Jacqueline, and it failed miserably. So what they do now, they drag Shedeur incessantly, and they don't even talk about Cam. They gonna show you. These guys are good. They are getting drafted. There are some teams that actually want to win. And when people were saying Shedeur was tumbling, I was like, well, you know what? If he is, he might go to a better organization where he could actually win. Because going to these worst organizations, they say CJ Stroud went to a good team, I think, the Texans when he went. Or either he made it better. I don't know. Pat Mahomes and his wife are the same as Clarence Thomas and his wife. Ooh, 22. Woo, woo, that's terrible. That's terrible. But it explains a lot. Fried chicken. Yeah, it does. It does. That's gonna be my opening song. That's gonna be my opening song. I want somebody to go watch Evolution of a Black Quarterback. And then I want you to pay attention to Pat Mahomes' segment because they had him in it. But I think he probably might have been shocked when they asked him to be in it. Go watch it and tell me if you noticed something about his responses. Somebody got to do it because I know I'm not the only one. And I trust my gut, so I know I'm right. Hey, Chad. Hey, Queen T. Welcome back. Haven't seen you in a minute. Glad to have you back. Glad to have you back. Johnny King is keeping me up on the score of FAMU and Jackson State, who are playing in Atlanta for the SWAC basketball tournament. I tried to go but couldn't get tickets. I'm assuming it was sold out. That had to be the only reason. So I'm going to try to get tickets to one of the other events that take place from now through Saturday. They actually have a block party. It said HBCU block party for SWAC championship from like 3 to 11 on the 14th. Is that a Saturday? Yep, that's a Saturday. No, that's Friday. That's Friday from 3 to 11. I might pop up. The reason I would go to like the block party is to get footage for y'all so we can see what it looked like and come back and talk about it. I would go live from there. So that's what I would do. A lot of hate and racism in NFL. Yes. And also too, the WNBA. I feel like Unrivaled coming along and doing it better than the WNBA has ever even tried. The sponsors that they don't just have any sponsors. They got luxury. They have luxury sponsors. Their games look like it's a luxury setting. They tried to hate on the league. I think somebody got called out at ESPN because why? They were trying to say that they didn't have good ratings. And apparently that wasn't true. Remember they tried to hate on Angel Reese when she started her own show, but it's doing well. She's thriving. And now that Unrivaled pays the women over six figures to start. They start at over 6 figures. Now these women have to go back to the WNBA and as long as they're under contract and feel like, so I got to come over here and play like an Angel Reese, play for $75,000. So, and then like I said, Juju, I'll keep an eye on Juju. I actually have a short to drop for her. So y'all gonna be seeing basketball content from me. Like I said, I'm trying to figure out, do I do a separate hour with basketball? Because I was just talking about Steph Curry, who also invested in Unrivaled. He's an investor. Steph Curry is planning his exit from the NBA, and I like the way he's doing it because why? He's not waiting until he's retired, go on vacation and go, what do I do now? He knows he's getting ready to retire shortly. And he's now the assistant GM at Davidson College, which is his alma mater. And I liked his statement about attracting talent and players of high character. Y'all know why I like that statement. The NBA needs to take notes. I said that the other day. Juju is now in second place for like the most points. I think Kelsey Mitchell that plays for Indiana is in first place. That's a whole nother conversation. I talked about that last year. How Kelsey Mitchell, in my opinion, was snubbed until they realized she was a free agent and she was the best point guard on the team, actually, and statistically, and actually so in reality. Kelsey Mitchell was the best guard on the team, but was being shunned along with Aaliyah Boston, who, in my opinion, played right into it to be accepted by the Indiana Fever. And I guess they signed her to a long-term contract. So they knew who she was, but they were trying to they were trying to make Caitlin Clark like they are Aaron Rodgers, the hype train, the media hype train, propping up Caitlin Clark. Not that she wasn't good. And this was my whole thing about that. Caitlin Clark was actually a good ball player in her own right. She didn't need the hype train. But you know what the hype train was intended to do? Make her like a puppet and attract sponsors and white straight women to come watch Black queer women and just queer women in general play basketball. How's that for advertising strategy? So that's why I stopped watching it. And Unrivaled proved that you don't need to do that. You just get a good product, some talent, and a good venue, and some sponsors like financial backing like they did from Ally, and move on. That's all they did. And they highlighted every player. They never took one player and put them on a pedestal and shunned everybody else. There's actually an argument with one of the teams that Angel Reese is on because they're upset that Angel Reese is considered the MVP over Alicia Gray. Alicia Gray was the MVP, the two-time skills challenge winner for the 3-point contest and the skills challenge. Won both contests after Caitlin Clark. She didn't want to play the 3-point contest because she wasn't doing well at the 3-point. She wasn't MVP that they thought she was going to be. That was Arike Obagunwale, whose brother plays for the Texans, by the way. And they didn't give those women any shine or notoriety after they won. If Caitlin had won either of those contests, they would have been talking about it from that moment until now. So that's what's happening to Black athletes. They take a white athlete that they prefer, whether they have the talent to or not. And they don't even have to be that talented. And they're definitely not talented than the other 142 people in the league. But I want to attract white people to come watch this sport, so I'm gonna put you up here. Don't use me like that. Because these people not gonna like me. Because they know they better than me, and so do I. I know too. So this year when Caitlin Clark came back and said that the WNBA owes a debt of gratitude to Black women because the league was built on their backs, she's correct. But it's like they never want a queer woman, or maybe a Black woman, or a queer woman, even if she's not Black, or a Black straight woman, to be the face of the league. Asia Wilson should have been the face of the league. So, and Caitlin Clark was asked if she wanted to play for Unrivaled for $1 million. She said, no, I'm glad she did. Let the league grow on the strength of talent. Don't put your league together and then do exactly what the WNBA did. I'm glad she didn't play. So, and now, the WNBA is trying to get itself back together for the second season. I don't know. We'll see who returns. Well, I think once their contracts are up, maybe they can still play in Unrivaled. That's something we have to see, because right now they're tethered to the WNBA. Unrivaled seems to be tethered to the WNBA. Now, future stars like Juju, Paige Buckner, and Flage, I think they have already been offered to play, even though I don't think Juju comes out for another year or so. They can make those girls offers, but the WNBA players, the women, they have to actually actively be a part of the WNBA. I wish they could do away with that, because that means they're not 100% independent if they have to be tethered. Coach Prime has definitely schooled Dame, and Coach Prime has definitely schooled them. I heard Shiloh say something on a video where he was working out, and Coach Prime was talking about his process of the combine. And he said how he got frustrated with the process. He just wanted to hurry up and run or something. And I heard Shiloh say, that's why they hate on Shedeur and me and Shedeur and I, because of you. And he laughed, but I don't think he was joking. I think that's how he really feels. So it seems that, running with that narrative, what it does is it lets the racism off the hook. Don't ever say that, because that's not what it is. That means you're not paying attention to everybody before Shedeur and looking at what they endured. You're letting the racism off the hook, and they are too when they say that. That's what they want you to think, because they don't want anybody to sit up and put it all together. They surely don't want an entire fan base to realize that they're being racist. That's why they keep spreading around the defamatory comments at ESPN. So it's not just one person. It's Mad Dog. It's this person, Mel Kiper Jr. Now it's Louis Riddick. Oh, he Black, so we just doing our jobs. Same thing. It's because his father's Coach Prime. I'm like, if everybody in NFL hate Coach Prime, how he got so much pull? Has nobody ever asked that question since all of this downpour of hatred? How does somebody who has so much pull, who does not need to interview for an NFL job, if he's so hated? Because he's not. It's not even about that. It's racism. I wouldn't be surprised if the same players are getting paid to cause QBs to get sacked. I already said it a couple of podcasts ago. I said you now have to ask yourself the question: are there O-linemen who are intentionally allowing NFL quarterbacks to get sacked? You have to ask the question. It's warranted. So when we see what happens with the Commanders, now we know the Commanders had some issues with defense. They have some things they can tool. I said they needed a running back. They got Deebo Samuel. So they're doing what they need to do. But getting this guy who supposedly was the problem in Houston with CJ Stroud, if without him, CJ improves, but Jaden Daniels starts to suffer and falter a sophomore slump, because that's what they call it with CJ, then that tells you it's exactly what we said on 3/12/2025. Rigged for these black quarterbacks, young black quarterbacks that start to fail. I heard that the Giants was going for Aaron Rodgers. Good. Good. I'm not upset. And I said Aaron Rodgers is not going to a Super Bowl. In my opinion, if he hasn't done anything by now, it's a wrap. The thing is, they trying to force somebody to take him, and I don't even know why. It's too much talent out here to force a 41-year-old quarterback who people deem is better off at home or on the Pat McAfee show, meaning AKA he's washed up. Why are they forcing him on people? What is that about? But they would never force Jameis Winston on anybody because he don't even have a job. They just like him being the MC of the Super Bowl in New Orleans, the activities and the shows and making people laugh. I like Jameis Winston, but he deserves better. The Cleveland deal could work. Oh, the Cleveland deal is me asking if Cleveland drafts Shedeur and trades him to the Vegas Raiders. So it's like they drafted Shedeur to get him secured so the Raiders can get him. Kiel is responding by saying the Cleveland trade could work because the Raiders move up and get another. Oh, the Raiders can move up and get another first round pick. That could work. Oh, okay. So we got one that could work, right? I like that. Okay. So Kiel basically told us that since we see the Browns showing Shedeur so much love, this was even before the whole Kenny Pickett thing. And now that they have Kenny Pickett, who I don't expect to be a starter, and we don't expect them to get a starter, because even though they do have 11 picks, in Cleveland, we expect maybe we're going to look at the scenario that's the conduit. The Browns are the conduit to draft Shedeur, and the Raiders, they trade him to the Raiders. So that's securing Shedeur and taking him off the board for the Raiders, which means Shedeur could go number 2. It would explain the Cleveland Browns back hat and all the love that Shedeur has for Cleveland that they have for him. That we doing this not for us, but for the Raiders. And then we're going to have to listen. Oh, they're going to be just as shocked if Shedeur goes second to Cleveland without them understanding what we're talking about the trade, that Cleveland is just a conduit. Oh, just get ready. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to go live. I'm probably actually going to be live during the draft. They're going to be like, oh my God, I thought he was tumbling. They're going to have to try to walk back all of this foolishness. And then when he gets traded to the Raiders, they're going to have to walk back all of the excitement that they know was fabricated because they know Geno Smith wasn't going to start there. If the Seahawks didn't want to pay him, and he was traded for a 3rd round pick, I think he might have been the only person who didn't know he wasn't QB1. So does that mean Shedeur would have to compete with Geno Smith? There we go. 2 black quarterbacks stacked together. What do you have winning the SWAC championship? Can South Carolina repeat? Oh, you're talking about women's? If South Carolina is playing Juju Watkins, I'm going to have to think about that because, again, just like the Washington Commanders played the Philadelphia Eagles, I knew Philadelphia had the best defense in the league, and I still made an emotional decision because I wanted Jaden Daniels of the Commanders to get it. This is the same thing. I don't even know how UCLA plays overall. I know Juju is a star, a mini Michael Jordan with a bun, which is why I had a bun yesterday, just in case y'all didn't know. And I know Don Staley. I think it should be South Carolina because one person can't win it all against an entire team because they got weapons in South Carolina. But I hate to vote against Juju. South Carolina. Juju will be back one more year. I'm gonna give it to South Carolina to win it again. Overall. South Carolina. That's what I think. See, you said this is fire. Okay, thank you. What's fire? Thank you so much, Shanithia. I hope I'm saying your name right. Let me look at that. Is that an N or R? Sharitha. Thank you, Miss Hayes. Sharitha. Okay. Let me know what's fire, by the way. Johnny said Jackson State defeated FAMU 98-76. Oh, 91-76. Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, that's it. See, I didn't even need to go to the game. There we go. Okay. Well, I guess this concludes our podcast because we're 1 hour and 48 minutes in anyway. I appreciate you, Johnny King, for letting me know what the score is because I had no way of finding out while I'm alive. I'd have to Google it later. So I appreciate you for that. And I guess we're going to get out of here, guys. We're going to get out of here. I hope y'all have enjoyed what is probably going to be a series, probably the intersectionality of race in football and basketball. That's probably going to become a series of mine that we're going to talk about periodically as things go on, as basketball and college with Juju not getting her proper due. Think about it. Juju surpassed Caitlin Clark, right? Remember all the press Caitlin Clark got at Iowa? That's what Juju should be getting. So that's to kind of give you the magnitude of what's happening and what's not happening, what's possible and what's not happening for Juju, which is sad, right? Everybody tried to make it personal about Angel Reese. I never heard them say nothing untoward about Juju, but they still doing the same thing, acting like they don't see her. Nike sees her, so that's awesome, right? But the point is, it's not right for the media to be biased. The media isn't supposed to be neutral and report the facts, not their preferences. And that's the problem that we're having. So I need fans of players and teams to do what's being done. Just get a little louder. Keep calling them out. Ryan Clark can't be the only person. There needs to be someone else. Maybe Monica McNutt on the women's side, because she called out Stephen A last year. She told Stephen A, that's how we knew he was the boss. She said, you the boss here. You could have been talking about the WNBA. But I need somebody else to join Ryan Clark and call out the truth and hold the media weaponizing their platforms to be racist exclusively against Black athletes and top Black athletes too, to try to damage their reputations, draft stock, etc. That's racist. That's wrong. Johnny King said, okay, so I have South Carolina. Let me see if I can type it in there. Let me see. I don't know. It seems like it might be frozen. I don't know. All right. So I think I'm frozen. So I better get out of here. All right, y'all. So it seems like it's frozen. I didn't know that could happen. So we.
College basketball and college football is filled with so much racism. There's so much vitriol spewed at people like Angel Reese, Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders, the Colorado Buffaloes, LSU women's basketball team. And what is so sad is the athletes are just pure competitors. Caitlin Clark is phenomenal. Angel Reese is phenomenal. And people want to make it more about skin color than the true competition in sport.
All right, so that was that. And I'm choosing South Carolina. My screen froze, so that means I better get out of here. South Carolina for the dub. That's what I'm going to go with. So, Johnny, I hope you saw my answer. South Carolina, I believe, will win. The media is controlled by the good old boys. Racist at that. Right, which is why I felt like they propped up Stephen A. so they could stand behind their comments so they aren't the ones called out. So, really, Stephen A. is being paid to take the hit. To shield other people from being racist. He's like he's just doing their work. And I hate that because he's better than that. So I picked South Carolina, Johnny. That's who I picked. South Carolina. All right, y'all. I think we're going to get out of here. And just,
Reese, you can't beat a big bad wolf, but then kind of cry like Courage the Cowardly Dog.
So Angel Reese makes too much money to cry. She's too grown to cry. And when she loses, she can't cry. Y'all make it make sense. Join me for conversation on what she said. Hit the like button and subscribe.
So, those are the videos I shared today.
And
it's
college
not about
football
the talent.
is filled with so much
It's
racism.
about
There's
holding
so
black
much
people
vitriol
back, and
spewed
even in the
at
face
people
of
like
mediocrity,
Angel
they're willing
Reese,
to do
Shedeur
it.
Sanders, Deion Sanders,
So that's
the
what it is.
Colorado Buffaloes, LSU
And we
women's
gonna get out of
basketball
here.
team.
I appreciate
And what is
that.
so sad is the athletes are just pure competitors. Caitlin Clark is phenomenal. Angel Reese is phenomenal. And people want to make it more about skin color than the true competition in sport.
So that's
like
it.
Sanders, Deion.
That's it. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all for hanging out with me. I really appreciate this. Sometimes people don't like to have these conversations, but conversations need to be had. Tough conversations need to be had, and it shouldn't be a tough conversation. I'm just ready to get to the point where I see more than Ryan Clark on these big box experts calling it out. I don't want to hear people talking about it at the water cooler or at the cubicle or wherever. I want somebody else in the media, in addition to Ryan Clark, to have the courage to call it what it is against Shedeur, Juju, as well as Angel Reese and others. It's racism against Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and all of the other quarterbacks, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and Caleb Williams, Justin Fields, Anthony Richardson. I could just keep going and keep going. If you didn't watch Evolution of a Black Quarterback, go watch it and let me know your thoughts when you watch it. And then I want you to tell me, when did the racist behavior stop? What year was it? You're not going to be able to tell me that, but I want you to tell me what you think, because it has never stopped, which is why we're seeing it right now. And it's never stopped. All right, y'all. Good night. Thank you so much. Yes, Ryan Clark is always calling it. Yep. And I need somebody else to have the courage to call it out as well. All right. So good night, y'all. I'll see y'all next time. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for watching What She Said.